Hi, everybody. I am so excited to bring back Ariel Faulkner for round two. You hopefully watched our part one yesterday, and based on your comments and your questions, we're going to make sure we're going to do our best to address all of your questions and concerns. And I'm so excited, Ariel. I told you yesterday that I loved you so much. It's rare to find somebody with that contagious level of energy and competence and knowledge, and also understanding exactly what most people are going through right now, especially in light of the recent negative effects that are undeniable when people are cutting carbs from their diet and reintroducing them. People need to hear your experience with eating disorders, your experience with the mindset and the psychology. So thank you so much for accepting to do this round two again. For the people who missed part one, can you give them just a short bio, and then we'll dive deeper into the new questions and comments we got.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been working as an integrative and functional dietitian now for 20 years, and I got into nutrition. I'll add this to a little bit to my bio today just to be a little more vulnerable. I didn't get into nutrition because I studied it and I thought it was cool. I got into nutrition from my sister developed an eating disorder when I was 12, or she was 12, I was 8. She was disordered for 12 years, and then we lost her when I was 20. I was in college and then I changed my major. I also had my own food issues that stemmed from, you know, childhood trauma, shame, all those wonderful things. I think a lot of women, a lot of us who struggle with food, there is always a deeper root cause there, which is part of my work. We really have to look at what's underneath, what are the beliefs, why have we developed this fear and shame-based relationship with our body and food? And so I work with clients one-on-one. I work primarily with women, and I love to help women just take ownership of their body, restore sovereignty and agency, feel amazing in their skin, learn to trust themselves, and learn to fuel in a way that truly works for them. Because what we're talking about today with the carbohydrates, it's yes, Sarah and I do great on carbs, and carbs are definitely something we don't want to cut out of the diet, but that level of carb intake and what you need personally to thrive is going to be dependent on you and bioindividuality and metabolism and activity level and mitochondrial health and all these other aspects. And so we aren't here, or we're not here to tell you you have to eat the same way we do, but we're just giving you a new perspective because we have seen a lot of women get really, harmed by these, extreme approaches, not only physically, mentally, emotionally, and we both have been there. So I'm
Yes.
excited to continue this conversation.
Yes, and you did do keto, and immediately the consequences of shutting out carbohydrates were immediate for you. Your thyroid plummeted. You just your energy went away. Your gut health, as evidenced by the testing you did, and calprotectin, which is a marker of inflammation, went up. And so we've been there, right? We both have done the keto and the carnivore. And when we thought that that was it, this is like, oh, we're so much smarter because we know what mainstream medicine isn't telling us. And then you do it for a while and then you realize that actually it's going to backfire. And for some people, a lot sooner than for others. So this is
Mhm.
why this is so important on the topic of reintroducing carbs and now understanding how we can utilize this powerful nutrient, this powerful fuel for our bodies to thrive above and beyond even the highest levels of what keto and carnivore can do. So that's really important for people also to know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so let's first get the biggest question that people usually want to know. What are the macros? What would your recommendation for the macros for the vast majority of people be? And I know it's very, very a blanket statement. I know that. But just your views on this topic.
Okay, so what I would say is I have to kind of give categories because coming from more like of a clinical background as well of like the research, because I am certified in relative energy deficiency in sport, which is under the umbrella of low energy availability, specifically in women. And so we know from actual research studies looking at women's hormone metabolism, thyroid health, et cetera, what women need minimally to function. And so when you start to see active women fall below 3 grams per kilogram of body weight a day, you are going to see some of these metabolic adaptations that we were discussing earlier to
Mhm.
hormonal endocrine issues, thyroid issues, etc. And are there women who are more resilient to this? Absolutely. But is that the majority? No, that's definitely not the majority. And if you do have a woman who is more of like, you could say a PCOS phenotype or more insulin resistant, that there's this common belief that they need a low carb diet, and that's actually not true. Oftentimes what we have to do is we have to work on the metabolic health and the gut health and really work on reducing the insulin. And that all comes from restoring gut health, gut diversity, et cetera, so they can increase carbs and tolerate carbs. But from a minimum guide, like I would say, if you are, I would say in general, if you are just sitting all day and you're not active, you're looking at 2 grams per kilo. So let's say you're 60 kilograms, you're looking at 120. So we're not sitting here telling people to go down 500 grams of carbs. I mean, let's get real here. But what we are saying is give your body enough carbs so you're not turning on those stress hormones. And if you look at 120 grams of carbs, that's technically a pretty low carb diet. I mean, that's not high at all.
Yeah.
Um, and I would say that would be kind of 2 grams per kilo would be a bare minimum. 3 grams would be minimum if you're active. And then, I mean, if you want to look at sports nutrition guidelines, if you're highly active, you're trying to gain muscle, you're working out like Sarah, you can go up to, 5 grams per kilo to 7 grams per kilo. And the most important thing about it too is just looking at, of course, we can talk about just the macros, but then the type of carb, the quality of carb, the fiber, how are you balancing it, and what is the state you're in when you're eating the carbohydrates. So all of these things impact carbohydrate metabolism, as well as you may individually tolerate specific carbs better than others. I know for myself, I can eat the same quote grams of carbs in, let's say, potatoes or sweet potatoes. And if I eat that amount of carbs with white rice, I get a much higher blood sugar response with the rice than I do with the potato. But let's clear something up, because a lot of people have this idea that the higher your blood sugar response, the worse it is for you. That's absolutely false. In fact, if your blood sugar rises more, like let's say I eat potatoes and I get a 110 blood sugar an hour later, or I eat rice and I get a 130 blood sugar hour later. If 2 hours after the meal, my blood sugar is under 100, which is really where you want to be looking, that 2 hour mark, it doesn't freaking matter. So people stressing and trying to manage their blood sugar in the super tight range, there's literally zero validity to it, zero research to support it. And what you want is you want a metabolism in a body that's metabolically flexible. If your blood sugar goes up to 135 and comes down below 100 in 2 hours, or goes up to 110, comes down to below 100 in 2 hours, stop stressing about it. It's not a big deal. I think we're getting so reductionistic with all of these aspects instead of looking at the whole picture. And go for a fucking walk then. 10-minute walk after a meal will reduce your blood sugar better than metformin. One 10-minute walk.
Yes, yes. Now, or just add 1 more pound of muscle, just one
Or add
pound
a pound of
added
muscle.
muscle.
Yeah.
It's going to give you for life a much greater ability to handle way more grams of carbohydrates, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And this is something
Mm-hmm.
when people start reintroducing carbs, and I know that because I'm working with so many people that are reintroducing carbs right now. And in the first couple of months, I tell them just don't worry about what your blood sugars is, right now, because it's just going to stress you out, because we need at least a few weeks to help you add that 1 or 2 pounds of muscle that is going to completely transform your insulin sensitivity levels. So you could, if you want to never even have this overspilling in the first month or two, sure, you could go very slow, very gradually. When I did it, I just went all in because I knew that my body responds very quickly to working out. And I knew in just a month or two, it's my blood sugars are going to be optimal, which they did. Now it's like 79 to like 80
Mm-hmm.
milligrams per deciliter, as a fasted baseline glucose, which is the best I've ever had, even better than when I was in my 20s, you know?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So, yeah, go
Mhm.
ahead.
And
Sorry.
let me add to that, because I think something that can really help with that, like with reintroducing carbs, keys around there are when you reintroduce them around training sessions. So if you have women who are lifting,
Yeah.
prioritize those carbs around the training session, and even during the training session can help upregulate that GLUT4, that glucose disposal enzyme.
Yes.
And then after meals, start adding a 10-minute walk after your meal. That alone is going to increase that glucose uptake, and then slowly titrate up. So maybe you start with adding 30 grams of carb to a meal, and then the next week you go to 40 grams of carb to a meal. I mean, it's like the body is so incredible and so adaptive. And it's really about getting out again, like I said in the last video, getting out of that restriction mindset and into the abundance mindset. Like, do you want to have a flexible, high flux engine, or do you want to have a body where you have to micromanage everything you put in your mouth because the body is just in this survival mode?
Right. That's eventually, as the weeks go by, as the months go by, you're going to keep getting weaker and weaker. The more you restrict, you lose resilience.
Mhm.
You're still aging. You're still being exposed to EMFs. You're still being exposed to environmental toxins. You're literally just one stressful event away from just completely falling apart. So build resilience, be able to not only handle, but actually thrive on a wider variety of foods, because
Mhm.
the people who can get way more nutrients from their environment and ingest them and assimilate them, they're always going to perform at a much higher level physically and mentally than the person who keeps restricting and loses the ability to digest and absorb those nutrients in those foods.
And I would say also really starting to question your beliefs. And I want to be clear here. Like Sarah, you're probably with me on this. Like it is not easy when you feel like I remember whatever it was 6, 7 years ago. I remember the anxiety I had thinking I was doing something wrong, being like, oh my God, my body's not gonna, like, this isn't gonna work. Like there was a lot of fear around it. And I reflect back now and I'm like, that is so sad that I had so little faith in my body because I had been so brainwashed and so much of me not trusting myself. That goes back to other things, but it was like I was trusting other people's opinions more over my own body. And that's what I can't stand about the whole fitness culture, diet culture, fitfluencers is if there's something that rubs me the wrong way, it's does anybody else think that's completely asinine?
Yeah, yeah, love that. Critical thinking. You make your own
Oh,
decisions. And by the way, in every area of your life, anybody who tells you they
absolutely.
have the answer, they're just
Run,
run, red
run,
flag.
run away.
Exactly, exactly. Any relationship, any society, any organization that trains you to stop trusting your intuition and yourself and instead prioritize their opinion above your own is a major red flag. And that's why you're going down real
hmm
fast in your life.
hmm It's stripping you of your power. And my goal with clients is for them to walk away and feel empowered and have agency and trust themselves. And if you're fall in these, okay, so let's go on because I could just go on tangents around that.
I think that's huge, though. I think we're due for, by the way, part three. I'm not letting you off the hook just yet. I don't think two interviews are not enough. So, okay, we did the carbs. Now let's do fat and protein. Let's start with protein.
Oh, sure. And I actually am excited to talk about this because I have, again, changed my mind. So I'm always learning, I'm always evolving, I'm always questioning. And I got really into the protein, 1 gram per pound, pushing the protein. I was kind of alluding to this a little bit yesterday when you asked me about what I eat in a day.
Yeah,
In the past, it would have been like protein had to be in every meal and every snack. And
right.
this is really interesting. The last 3 times I've had my labs done, I've had elevated BUN and creatinine. Now, there were other markers too that were kind of indicative that I was getting too much protein. And I just love protein. So I tracked it one day. I'm like 150 grams of protein a day easily because I
Wow.
was so focused on that. And for me as a female in my size, it was more than a gram per pound. And I'm like, wow, this is really not good. And then I started thinking about it in the sense of if I'm eating all this protein, what is that causing in the body with the nitrogen waste, with the stress on the liver, with all these things? Is this why I'm slightly now you can also have slight elevations in those from just muscle tissue breakdown if you train hard or whatever, but still it was consistent. And so I started diving more into the research, and a lot of new research just within the past few months have come out showing that this excessive focus on protein is completely unnecessary and may actually be causing more harm in the long term. And what I mean by that is what they showed was, and this is really crazy, but people consuming, well, crazy to me because I was such a big protein, people consuming only 1.5 grams per kilo were gained just as much muscle and had just as many metabolic health benefits as people consuming 1 gram per pound. So I think that protein, the golden child, is going to lose its era because you know how people like to put a macro on a
Yeah.
pedestal and then it's praised and then it's shamed and then whatever. I just think we're overdoing the protein because what
Mhm.
I see is this emphasis on protein, even like these ultra processed protein foods, like protein chips, protein bars, protein Pop-Tarts, protein fucking ice cream. I mean, there's protein, and I'm sitting here and I'm like, we have to remember there's something called a whole food matrix. And when we eat protein that's isolated and like weaved into these ultra processed snack foods, that bag of protein Doritos is no different than eating Doritos. And we're missing again the importance of the whole food matrix. We are so much better off eating something that might have less protein, but is a real food if we're getting enough protein at our meals, because there is just, like I said yesterday, there's so much we have yet to learn about nutrition and the body. And so my whole thing with protein, so with protein, I've actually been cutting back on my protein, and it's hard because I'm so used to eating so much protein. And I'm also focusing a little more on increasing different proteins from plants because another study just came out from Harvard showing that there was a reduction in all-cause mortality by 35% by just replacing 20 grams of your animal protein to plant protein on a daily basis. I mean, that's a tremendous improvement. And so it was this whole protein study. We could probably cite it for people, but and again, I am not anti-protein. I am not anti-meat. I think the problem with nutrition is all of these fucking rules. We don't need to go down and be like, oh, I can't eat meat now or whatever. It's like, let's look at these things holistically. I don't need to sit down to an 8-ounce steak. I can have a 4-ounce steak, right? And then I can have more vegetables and more potatoes. And so
Yeah.
protein to me is like minimum, I say, even you can even go as low as 1.2, but I would say closer to 1.5 grams per kilo. And then some people do fine. If you've been under eating protein, then you probably would do well eating 1 gram per pound. And this is why it's so bio-individual because it all depends on your starting place.
Right.
Most women come to me and they are not eating enough protein. So getting them up to 100 grams a day minimum is really, really important. But then if I have a woman who comes to me and she's feeling crappy or she's eating 150, 200 grams of protein because she's following some bodybuilder online and her gut health is a mess and all these things, then yeah, we probably want to reduce the protein. So that's where I am with protein and really deriving it from mostly whole foods. I'm not anti-powders, I'm not anti-bars. I'm just saying mostly eat
Yes.
it from real food.
Yes.
And then with the fats.
Yes.
So
I also want to just say something here before
yeah.
we start talking about the fats is that the vast majority of the people aren't training like elite athletes. They if they just get the whole foods base down right, that
Mhm.
is going to optimize their health. Then now if we have performance goals and we want to push the body beyond what we've ever done before, that's a completely different story. That's where it becomes impossible to hit your calorie targets, right, with just whole
Mhm.
foods. Then you still want the whole food base, but then you start to supplement. But when you're supplementing before you even cover your basic needs with the whole foods and achieving the grams of fiber that you need, if you can't do that first, like don't be doing the protein shakes and the concentrated stuff, you know?
Hmm. Hmm. And I love that you said that. And there's something kind of a fun study that kind of relates to that I want to bring up that kind of will show the insanity of us being so OCD about these, reductionistic aspects of nutrition because so there's a book out. It's called Can You Outrun a Donut? It's actually a really fun read. And I think he's an exercise physiologist. He's been a lifelong runner. And it was really incredible because actually, I want to bring up two studies real quick, Sarah, because they were really cool. The one study was he compared runners running 35 miles a week, and they had to be running for at least 2 years, but they ate a standard American diet. So it was not real whole food. Well, it was standard American diet, right? Normal diet. Compare that to people who were raw vegans for 2 years.
Uh-huh.
Okay. They didn't exercise though.
I
They were
know what the
sedentary.
conclusion is gonna be, but go ahead and tell
Okay,
me.
okay. So the participants who were runners but ate more flexibly, basically they didn't stress about food. They ate what they wanted. They had lower body fat and better metabolic health markers on all aspects. The raw vegans who basically micromanaged everything they put in their mouth, didn't touch anything if it wasn't sprouted, if it wasn't this, if it wasn't that. They had higher body fat and poorer
Yeah.
metabolic health. So this is where we were talking about yesterday with the engine, you
I
know?
knew it. I knew it. Yesterday,
Yes.
so I'm working with a client who had he has Crohn's disease from a very young age,
Okay.
multiple, surgeries and things like that. And finally did the Lion diet, beat
Mhm.
salt and water for a few months, thinking that that's it. That's the epitome, right? Did not deliver on the promises. That's when
Mhm.
he hired me, and we're reintroducing carbs and we're working out. And for the first time, he's like, I don't know what's happening. On Christmas I had ice cream and I had nothing. Like, he couldn't even have like regular sugars, let alone like an ultra processed ice cream form, without having that is digestive issues and having to be very close to a toilet, right? And I'm like, yeah. And I sent him this study showing how it was 2016 study showing how VO2 max, which is basically your cardiovascular fitness.
Mhm.
So as you run, you start to improve your VO2 max, especially as you get faster and faster. VO2 max is far more powerful for boosting microbiome diversity and gut health and sealing leaky gut than any diet or even your body weight. And I'm like, this
Yep.
is why.
Oh my God, I love what you're saying right now. Yes, 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 because that is so, it's like it's all coming anyway. So what we were talking about the metabolic health and, improving mitochondrial health, et cetera. But the other study, and this, I wouldn't have even believed this had I not seen the paper. So they took men and for 2 weeks, they had them eat a McDonald's diet. I'm not kidding you. It was all shit food. It was McDonald's and they ate 3,500 calories a day. But this was a caveat. Every single day, they had to do a 30-minute treadmill workout where 1 minute they had to go balls to the wall. So it was like hit and then 1 minute walk. And they did that 30 minutes daily for 2 weeks on top of a diet that was full of just ultra processed crap. I mean, it was literally a McDonald's diet. And guess what happened at the end of 2 weeks?
They lost weight,
had
improved
they
metabolism.
lost body fat, they had a reduction in blood
Yeah.
sugar, they had an improvement in blood sugar. Now, by no means, and I'm sitting here promoting this, but what I'm just trying to help people do is apply some critical thinking to all of this because that is what is missing. And already less than 1% of the population critically thinks. And then when you have, and I'm not shaming people for that, we are not taught to do that, right? But then when you have these fitfluencers and these doctors and these people out there who are basically sounding so confident and they sound competent and they're like, no, it's black and white. This is the way it is. It really causes people to question themselves and think that this is so complicated. And then instead of focusing on like, oh, how could I actually improve my VO2 max? How could I improve my metabolic flexibility? How can I work on my mitochondria? How can I really make my body as vibrant and flexible as possible instead of the fear mongering and this idea that we have to like follow these crazy rules in order to be healthy? And are there people who get benefits from going low carb? Yes, but that doesn't mean the low carb or the carbohydrates were the problem. And that's only a therapeutic time until we restore the gut, until we restore the metabolism, until we restore function. But to say carbs caused it, or to come, or like we had a comment about, well, just look around you about the carbohydrate thing.
Right.
Just look around you. So you're telling me that I am going to look around me and say carbs are bad when I know that the average American gets 3,000 steps a day, is overweight or obese, has a diet full of, I believe the latest statistic was 70% ultra processed foods, and they don't even get outside and get sunlight or go for walks. And you're going to say that is why you think carbs are the problem. Can somebody explain this to me? Because I'm confused.
All throughout the last 10, 12,000 years, all we ate was bread and carbohydrates. In the 1800s, even the early
Oh,
1900s,
yeah.
not only
Oh,
bread,
yeah.
but orange juice and pies and
Oh,
sugars. like lots of sugars on top of the breads, right? And nobody was metabolically unhealthy. Everybody was lean. They were jacked. We
Do you
never
know
had an
why?
issue.
Because they were active and they weren't
Exactly.
overeating and they didn't eat between meals. And the average housewife in 1970 was burning 2,500 calories a day because she was walking, she was doing 15,000 steps, she was making everything from scratch. When we are moving, we are burning energy, we are regulating metabolism. And if I hear one more person say obesity was caused by sugar, have you looked at NHANES data? Have you seen the latest statistic about what we are consuming? It is not just sugar. We are consuming over 40% fat, over 40% ultra processed carbs, and like
Yes.
15% protein. So, how are we blaming, or when people call pizza and donuts and all these foods carbs? I'm
They're
sorry, they have
higher
more
in
fat
fat.
calories than they do carb calories. It's just, oh,
I know, I know, I know. That's the negative side of social media where the viral message is what starts to really impact the general discourse and influences people. And
yep,
the viral message, how does a message go viral? Usually you want somebody who is a very has a very deep conviction, a lot of confidence in the way that they speak, and the competence doesn't really like maybe 10%
yes.
understanding what they're doing. As long as they're communicating it in a way that's very strong, it's gonna
Mhm.
go viral. And this is the unfortunately like the negative side of social media.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the bottom line is there's certain people, there's certain personality types, they're just going to believe what they want to believe. You can have the evidence right in front of their face. It will not matter. They are not going to see it. They have their cognitive dissonance is through the roof, and that's just the way it is. And I'm okay with that. If that's how they want to be, that's how they want to live, that's it, you know? There's no point in trying. But I just think like, our passion is we want women to know how good they can feel and to trust their bodies and to not be fucking afraid of eating a sweet potato or a piece of freaking sourdough bread. To be able to go and have ice cream with your daughter on a Sunday without having this fear that something terrible is going to happen or it's not keto or it's just the fear mongering around food
Yeah.
is causing so much damage. And it's really sad. Our eating disorders are now at an all-time high. And actually, the number one is binge eating disorder.
Yeah.
And I really do believe that that's related to a lot of this fear-mongering around food, along other things as well.
I think keto and carnivore really triggered worse cases of binge eating because
Oh,
people
absolutely.
people who never had issues with cravings, people who never had eating disordered behavior or binge eating, now they're like, "Oh, keto, so great, ketosis or carnivore, so fantastic. Let's take our health and fitness to the next level." And that's when they start hitting and experiencing those cravings. And the moment they veer off, they overeat because
Hmm.
in their mind, tomorrow is a new day and I can never touch
Hmm.
this food again. So might as well now annihilate all of these foods. And that's when you start having eating disorders for the first time. Or if you had a tendency to do that now, it's worse when you actually do have that binge.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
anytime we start to really place like almost like a moral value on food,
Yes.
and we're disconnected and we're really not coming from our own intuitive, like what I like with clients is like ideally we work together first with tracking. Is Chronometer is my favorite app because you can see your micronutrients. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you can transition to I call it intentional intuitive eating. I don't believe in just intuitive eating. I believe in intentional intuitive eating because you
Yes.
have to understand your body. You have to understand food and nutrition to then know how to transition off of that. And tracking is incredible and can be such a helpful tool. And there are clients I have who don't want to track and we just do completely by portions and looking at it that way. But yeah, and I think if you want to talk about it now, Sarah, the mindset piece, or is there somewhere else you want to go
Yeah,
first?
I want to go over the fat
Oh, the
recommendation. What are
fat.
your thoughts
Okay,
on that?
yes.
And then I do want
Yes.
to touch upon also your experience with you mentioned binge eating. I'm very interested because you never shared that before. So if you feel comfortable about that as well.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
the psychology is huge. It's everything, I think. So we can then delve into that.
Absolutely. Okay, so we were starting with the fats. So the fats, this is how I look at fats. I'm just looking for a fat source in each meal because it's going to blunt the carbohydrate. Basically like if you have a healthy fat at a meal, it helps with regulating that blood sugar response. I would say blunting it a little bit. I mean, the glucose goddess kind of goes a little over the top with this because you can eat a meal without fats. You don't always have to coat your carbs. But anyways, yes. So I look for, and I would say if people actually want numbers, if you're a female, you really need a minimum, I would say, of 12 to 15 grams of fat in a meal. And the other reason for that is because that's the amount of fat you actually need for CCK, which is a satiety hormone to be released. And then fats help with absorption of the nutrients. Like when you add fats to vegetables, you get, I think it's something like 300 to 500% more absorption of the polyphenols and the nutrients that yeah, in vegetables. It's really cool. And there's a lot of just benefits of whole food, healthy fats. And I think one of the things that I don't know, this probably is kind of at least it was for me when I was going through like the adding the carbs back. It was like, oh my God, I can't eat fats and carbs together because something bad's right. Because then you have that whole Randall cycle bullshit out there. And it's like, okay, actually, having fats and carbs and proteins all in the same meal is the best way to support your metabolism and your blood sugar. And when we could like think of an analogy, that would be like saying with exercise, well, I can't do cardio if I lift weights. It's like, no, and flexibility. No, you want all of it, right? It's like, let's stop demonizing. Let's see, like the foods, we want the balance. So I say 12 to 15 grams minimum. Some women need more than that, especially if you're eating a little less carb, you're going to need more fat because fat and carb are our energy nutrients. We don't get energy from protein unless that's the survival state. So, I typically like to focus, oh, and omega-3 fats, so critical. And so a lot of people are deficient in omega-3. I do take a fish oil supplement. I take one with Omega Vision because it also gives me specific antioxidants that support eye health. But there's a company called Zenzino. I'm not affiliated with them, but if you're curious, you can get your blood taken. They have a fish oil and they can test your omega-3 to omega-6 ratio.
Mm,
And I was just blown away because we eat salmon a couple times a week and my omega-3 level was low and my daughter's was
yeah.
really low. So we started taking omega-3 and that has tons of metabolic benefits, is so critical. What's that?
Yeah, I've done the same as you. I've done the
Okay.
Omega Quant, the Omega-3 index a few years
Hmm.
ago, and I was also shocked to find the same thing that the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio was off, and I needed more omega-3s in my diet. And because when you have a deficiency, just because you're
Hmm.
eating fish consistently, if you have a deficiency, that's not enough to correct it with just dietary intake.
Right.
So
Right.
you're gonna need to supplement for a while, retest, and then you settle on, the ideal diet. And if that ideal diet is perfect, then it keeps you there. If not, you can supplement with omega-3s. And again, if you have a higher demands, if you're an athlete or a peak performer, whatever, then we go into also higher levels at that point. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and the really cool about omega-3, speaking of athletes, because there was research done in this, and just to give people a ballpark, you want to be getting at least 2 to 4 grams a day. 2 grams minimum, up to 4 grams. It really depends on where your levels are. But if you haven't been taking them, start with 4 grams a day, and then after 6 months, go to 2 grams a day. But what they showed was really cool was when they supplemented with 2 grams a day in athletes, by 3 months, their fat oxidation was up by 30%.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yes.
significant improvement in fat oxidation.
Yeah.
So
So boost
omega
metabolism basically.
absolutely. And then you have the skin and the hair and fertility. I mean, it has so many impacts, the brain health, etc. Then, of course, like, and I'm not anti-saturated fats. I think butter is fine. I love olive oil. We buy it from like a place that's like family owned, cold pressed. It's amazing. Nuts, seeds. Now, we could probably talk about the seed oil thing for a second because I know that's a big deal right now. And yeah, by no means do I want people housing canola oil or all these vegetable oils and or using them in your cooking. But let's also take a breath and not blame seed oils for obesity and all comorbidities and all health issues because it is never one thing. I know humans, I know we like to have one scapegoat, but it's not just the seed oil, it's what that seed oil was fried with or what's going along with it. It's the
Right.
quantity, it's the lack of the other healthy fats, etc. So,
The
and
hexane
there's
that they
different,
use, the solvents that they use to
oh,
separate the fat
absolutely.
from, yeah,
Absolutely.
those are the issues.
Yeah, yeah, but plant-based fats are wonderful, and I will say with animal-based fats, and this is important because if people are going on keto or carnivore, there is ApoA-B. I'm trying to remember the genetic SNP, but there is a specific genetic SNP that 30% of the population carries that makes saturated fat. They're very arthrogenic and increases insulin resistance, and so people with that genetic predisposition when they do a high saturated fat diet, they get a lot of health issues along with insulin resistance.
Yes.
And so we have to be really careful about this whole butter's great, saturated fat's great, and I also see people and maybe you've seen this too, Sarah, with dysbiosis, with gut issues, they get really inflamed from cream and butter and heavy fats. And there's a whole reason there behind the inflammation, the lack of the gut integrity. And I'm not saying these foods caused it. I'm just saying they're more sensitive to
Yes,
it.
it's like if you have an ankle injury, you don't start sprinting, right? If you have gut
Right,
imbalances, you don't start with foods that you still can't handle,
right,
Eventually, you should be able to handle them. But first, let's make sure we're sealing leaky gut, we're boosting microbiome diversity, we're getting you
right.
healthier, and slowly and gradually, as you get stronger, you can handle more powerful foods that are more nutritious and pumped with all kinds of nutrients, and that helps you get better even faster. But it's a
Mhm.
gradual process.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, and so yeah, so I would say that's a kind of a good rule of thumb, and it also depends on where your intake is. If you need as much food as Sarah, she probably needs a lot more fat than that in her meals.
I need
I
to.
love egg yolks are an amazing source of healthy fats and nutrition. And the cool thing about egg yolks is that, believe it or not, 90% of women are deficient in choline. And choline is essential for fat metabolism, for fetal development, for so many aspects of health, brain
Acetylcholine,
chemistry,
focus, and
dopamine.
attention.
Yep, exactly. And three egg yolks gives you 100% of your choline needs. So egg yolks are awesome. And yeah, so that's kind of an overview of fats. Was there anything? I also love like full fat dairy, fermented full fat dairy to get the healthy fats, the saturated
Yes,
fats and the
yes.
calcium and the vitamin D.
CLA, conjugated linoleic acid.
Absolutely.
That's
Or
powerful for building
cis-16.
muscle. Oh, say that
Hmm.
again.
C16, the new fat they're talking about with all the
Right.
health benefits. You don't need to buy a supplement, guys. All you have to do is go get Pecorino Romano cheese and put a couple tablespoons on I was going to say pasta, but maybe I should say salad. Put
Right.
on your salad.
Right,
I
right.
mean, whenever these supplement companies come out, I'm always like, because one of my first jobs, I was at Rothman Institute. It's an orthopedics institute in Northeast, and I was a wellness dietitian. I was to help people take the weight off or lose weight before surgery, and then help them post-operatively. And so we created an entire supplement line to go along with the nutrition. And
Wow.
I got really curious about, well, where is this getting derived from and how can I get it naturally? Because I always think it's better to do that. And so, like the acromantia is a big one now about gut health.
Yes.
Get some tart cherry juice, get some pomegranate, get some dark, rich, colorful fruits. Feed acromantia. Cranberry is amazing for acromantia. So I always want to tell people, like, you don't have to spend more money. Let's get it from where we're
Yes.
naturally meant to source it from. So pecorino cheese is an amazing source of C16.
There you have it, everybody. Wow, you are a wealth of knowledge. This is so amazing. So we did the carbs, we did the proteins, we did the fats. Now, let's talk a little bit about and sorry to take you back there, but the binge
Oh,
eating
the binge eating.
tendencies.
Oh, for
Yes.
me?
Yes.
Yeah. So this was in my teens. I actually, and what it was triggered by was well, many things, but one of the things it was triggered by was in my like early teens around 14, 15. I ended up doing, really restricting my calories, going on a diet, doing crazy, yeah, exercise. And then it was really driven by a relationship I was in. And then he kind of broke up with me out of the blue. And then I just went no holds bar off that plan and started eating everything and anything, which often happens when you've been hyper restrictive.
Yep.
When I look back at that time, it's heartbreaking. I was probably eating less than 1,000 calories a day and working out an hour a day. I mean,
Wow.
insane. And that was all triggered by an assault I experienced and trauma. So, there's always, the body
Yeah.
becomes a scapegoat because it's easier to handle that than it is to deal with the pain from what you went through. And
Mm.
then I remember even being at the point where I literally thought I would be like, I'm not going to binge. And I would go, and it was like I was in a trance, and I'd go to the store, I'd start buying M&Ms, and I would just sit in my room and I'd be like, oh my God, I did it again. How did I do this? And I ended up honestly don't know how it's so long ago, Sarah, because I'm 45 now. I was like 17, I think, at that point. I don't remember how I kind of got myself out of that, but I do tend to have a pretty strong personality or willpower, you could say, where I was like, once I was like, this is done. I'm done with this. I'm not doing this anymore. But I did work through that and worked my way out of that cycle, but that didn't heal my food issues.
Mm.
I also then went into, okay, like the food was just a very fear and shame-based relationship with food for a majority of my life, which is what led me into, and growing up with certain specific family environment also fed that, right? And then we have the culture, which fed that. And then when I was, even reflecting back in my 30s, I'm like, why didn't I trust myself enough to not, how did I fall for this keto carnivore shit? And I think that it really, when you have, like, it all started when I was actually invited to a conference in West Palm Beach. I wasn't keto, but I was invited. And then I met all these doctors and all these people with all this status, and they just, oh, well, they must know more than me. I must be missing something, because I've always questioned myself. I've always thought outside the box. So I'm like, and I never really trusted what I learned in school. And I will say that outright. I do not follow traditional dietetic guidelines. I think they're bullshit. And I was even the one in class that was always like, what about this? Or what about? So I've always been the questioner. I've never been the traditional rule follower. And so that always caused me to not trust what I was taught and think outside the box, which then kind of landed me down some bad roads. But again, like, I wouldn't have learned what I learned have not if I hadn't gone through the experience. And I'm glad I went through the experience, because it helps me help other women.
Likewise, yeah, likewise. I mean, so similar. We feel like we're so different the way that we think, that we discovered this thing that is so out of the box, the keto and then the carnivore, and we feel proud of ourselves. And you feel like you're at the cutting edge. Like this is the
Yes.
latest,
Yes.
and the science just needs to, keep up with
Catch
the
up.
pace. Yeah, no, it's not like that. So, and then, yeah, the reason that we're having such a great rapport and we have finally come back alive is because we learned this lesson the hard way,
Mhm.
and now we can help people. So,
Mhm.
great. Cover those two topics. Let's talk a little bit about your workouts as well. What are your thoughts on that and your personal workout regimen?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I was like, I forgot to, because sorry, I got off on so many tangents yesterday.
It's okay. We
So,
have time. We can film as many of these as we want, so it's okay. Don't worry.
so my current training schedule is actually, I just started following. So I love resistance training. So I do a 5 day split. I do 3 lower body days, 2 upper body days. It takes me about an hour. Outside of that, I get steps. I mean, naturally, I'm pretty an active person, so it's rare I have less than 12,000 steps a day. Most of the time, I'm between 12 to 15,000 steps a day. I do some zone two cardio, and sometimes I either do that walking or jogging. I would say about 3 days a week, 30 minutes. And once I get through this program I'm doing is pretty intense. So I used to do more like an hour a day of zone two, like 6 days a week. But because of the recovery I need with this training program and I'm trying to gain muscle, I don't want to interfere, because I'm already, and this is where I'm different. So I have been a runner since I was 11. So my cardiac health is crazy. Like, I could go out tomorrow morning and run 5 miles fasted, because that's how my mitochondria is so healthy. So I don't really need to build that zone two. I do it more so just because I love to move and I love exercise. And then I do sprint interval training 1 to 2 days a week. But right now, because my goal is more strength, hypertrophy, body composition, I'm not overdoing the cardio. And that was a big mistake. Ladies made this mistake in the past, way too much cardio, not enough resistance training because I was afraid of getting too big or gaining too much muscle. And when you start training and seeing how hard it is to actually put on muscle,
I
and
know.
then you see the metabolic benefits. Oh, and let me get this is a cool N of one. This is really
Okay.
cool. So I want to share this because it has to do with the training. And so to give you, because again, training is also creating a unique signal. And so you have cardio training creates one signal, resistance training creates another. So when women are thinking about training to burn calories, like I used to, it was like, oh, I need to run, I need to burn calories. Well, I ended up getting a breathing metabolic machine, meaning you can test your metabolism at home. And I use this with local clients. And so I decided to experiment to see what would happen. One morning, I tested my resting metabolism. I went for a run and I tested my metabolism a few hours later, and my metabolism was lower. It was about 200 calories lower than it was first thing in the morning. Now,
Ah,
remember, this is also when I'm in a state where I'm not fully fueled, but still, my metabolism had adapted down to, as this is what I learned later with the constrained energy theory, to basically reduce the amount of energy I'm burning. So when you are under eating and over exercising, you burn calories. You burn the same amount of calories in that hour. You might get a 20% efficiency depending on the person, but then the rest of the 23 hours, especially women, we're looking where can I conserve? So I'm not going to have my hormones as high, my libido tanks, all these things happen to conserve energy. My hair isn't going to be as nice. My lashes aren't going to grow. All these things shut down to conserve that energy you burn because you weren't providing it. But anyway, so I was like, wow, that's crazy.
nice.
And then
So
I
you,
just,
you have the indirect calorimetry basically device where
yes,
you it measures oxygen
where
and
you measure
CO2.
oxygen consumption and carbon
Yeah.
dioxide produced. So then I was like, oh, I had gotten into resistance training, and this wasn't that week. This was a little bit later because I had noticed, I'm like, how is it that I'm getting leaner? I'm eating more. I'm not burning as many calories. I'm resistance training. So one morning I do my training and I test my metabolism before and after. And my metabolism, now, if you look at research, it would say this isn't the boost you get, but for whatever reason with my body it is. My metabolism was like 250 calories higher. So I think by resting that morning was something like, I want to say 1750. And then when I tested it later, it was over 2000 from the training. So this is where we
Exactly.
have to stop looking at just calories in, calories out. What is the metabolic signal? What is the training style? What are we consuming? And how do we optimize that energy flux versus looking at things in isolation?
Okay. I love this so much. You know how we're taught that just a pound of muscle is going to burn only 6 calories per
Yes,
day,
yes, yeah,
right?
yeah.
And or 10 calories, and a pound of fat is like 6 calories, so it's like no, a pound of fat is 2 calories per day, and a
Yeah,
pound
and
of
a pound of
muscle,
muscle is like 6 to 8.
so
Yeah,
6 to 8. Some
yeah.
people will say 10, whatever. Okay. So that's textbook information. But then when you
Yes.
actually train people, when you have the machine and you're testing yourself, and just seeing it in myself and by training people, and also by the way, Mind Pump podcast, they're fantastic in
Oh
that
yeah,
they
I'm
figured that
familiar
one
with
out.
them.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's also what that they've, I mean, coach thousands and thousands of people for so long now, and they see it as well. And it's just not true that you only burn this small amount.
No,
Actually, only 6 to 10 calories more per pound of muscle. It's more like 400 calories for that first pound of muscle, another 400 for that second. Then it starts being like a little bit slower, but on average, it's way hundreds of calories more. This is how I managed to start eating 3,200 calories. That's the only way.
I love what you just said, and I want to add to that because you just triggered something in my brain. Because the thing that they're not looking at is that the repair process. So after you strength train or after you lift weights, your body requires a lot of energy to repair that muscle, to build the muscle. There are all this metabolic machinery that goes on after weight training, resistance training, power training, any kind of training like that. And that significantly increases over the 24-hour and sometimes up to 72-hour energy expenditure. So yes, that's why just saying, well, a pound of muscle only burns X more calories. It's like, no, because we have to look at the whole picture, right? And then the
Exactly.
other piece of that, and I love that you said that because people don't realize that when we look at just scale weight and when we're assessing a diet, keto is a great example because you lose a lot of fluid in the beginning on keto. Most of the time, you lose water weight,
Yeah,
but
and glycogen
and
stores
glycogen
are
too.
empty.
And so
Yes.
when you are, let's say if people are using Ozempic or they're on low calories or they're just looking at scale weight, the thing about it is that 1 pound of muscle only requires a deficit of 600 to 800 calories.
Mm.
Compare that to fat. 1 pound of fat is 3,500 to 4,000 calories. And
Right.
this is why when people go on these crazy, or fasting is a great example. It's a great client story. I had this client and he was like, I want to fast. Like he had this like, he was adamant fasting is the only thing that works for me. I want to fast, but yeah, he keeps struggling with his weight. So I'm like, I want you to do me a body comp. We're going to do it your way. I want you to do what you want to do, but let's do a body comp before and after. So he does a body comp pre. It was a 1 month. He did a body comp at the end of the month. He had lost about 12 pounds. 8 of them were lean tissue.
Wow.
4 pounds
Wow.
of fat, 8 pounds of lean tissue. Sorry, not my goal, and hopefully that's not your goal. And that's the same thing that's happening on these GLP-1s, et cetera, is people are looking at the scale weight, and that's often the problem. Women look at the scale weight. Like I'm the same weight now. Oh no, it's a great example. When I was a runner, and I'm 5'6". When I was a runner and I was in it was in my mid-20s, I wasn't lifting. I was 117 pounds and I had 92 pounds of lean tissue. Okay. Now I am 45. I don't do a ton of cardio. Now, this is why the scale lies because I'm around 130 pounds and my lean tissue is 111 pounds.
Wow.
So let's do the math. I am way heavier, right?
Yep.
117. I'm 13 to 15 pounds heavier, but I have what I'm trying to do the math in my head. I have like less body fat. So like no, I did not look good naked at that point.
Yeah.
And
Been there. I know
no, and I wasn't
exactly how that
healthy.
goes.
I was chronically under eating. I was over exercising. And in my
Yep.
20s, my body, now I'm in my 40s, if I did that, my body wouldn't even respond. It would be like, fuck you.
Right, right. Oh, 1 pound of muscle, because it starts to accumulate higher and higher levels of glycogen, the better
hmm
fitness you become, the better fit, the more fit you get, meaning the stronger you get. And if you're running, the faster you get, the muscle glycogen starts to pack on more densely as the time goes
hmm
on. So that same pound of muscle, as time goes on and it's exercised at higher and higher levels of fitness, it can suck up.
Accommodate more carb, more
Exactly. And
glycogen. hmm
store a lot more glycogen. And every gram of glycogen is going to bind to it around 3.6 grams of water. And
Yep.
so just 1 pound
hmm
of muscle that you add, which I would be so excited to have, that's an extra, let's say 400 calories burned, just basal metabolism. That means you're going to go up by like 4 to anywhere between 4 to 6 pounds on scale weight. And so you can see why
hmm
people freak out. It's like, no, this is the best thing, because you can see yourself leaning out. You can see yourself eating more. Or if you still want to lose weight, you don't have to go on a calorie deficit because your basal metabolism has gone up and it's giving you the deficit that way anyway. That's what you want. But yeah, the scale, when we're doing things the way that we're doing it, you want to forget, for the most part, the scale weight, and you want to get those in body and the
Oh,
body composition
measurements.
testing and the measurements.
hmm
Exactly.
hmm
You
hmm
know?
I think scale weight is one of the worst metrics. I mean, I use it with clients, but it's always with context and also understanding you really don't have a goal weight, you have a goal body. It's our relationship to gravity is not going to tell us how good we look. I mean, it really isn't.
Exactly. Take pictures as well. You
Oh,
can
photos
tell.
are
Yes.
awesome.
I
Yeah.
know when I'm gonna get a new, like, a great in-body measurement that day when I wake up and I'm like, ooh, I look tight, it's working. And I know every time I step into a new milestone, I know that's gonna be translated by the in-body machine because I can just see it, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah. And the other thing too, I would encourage is like, I don't weigh myself. I don't get body fat scans done anymore. Like, you can really like look in the mirror. How do you feel in your body? Because the other piece of it too is that we all have genetic settling point. So we have a range that like let's say I'm going to use myself. Let's say my range is 130 to 145. Maybe that's my settling range. So if I decided to stop exercising and eat donuts and not, I'm going to sit at the high end of that range, right? And
Right.
maybe I'll even go above it. But the point is, but if I'm exercising and I'm really taking care of myself and I'm moving, then I'm sitting at the lower end of that range. But we can't force our bodies into some mold that isn't right for them. And I like to take women away from those metrics because
Right.
it can be really damaging. Like, let your body determine where it's meant to be. Focus on the process, focus on the habits, focus on the behaviors, focus on the relationship with your body. And then you're going to feel amazing in your skin, you
True,
know?
true. And you can lower your body weight set point, but just
Yes.
don't, but it takes time. That's the thing, right?
Yes.
Like you can keep adding muscle to your frame. It just, the thing is, you would have to ensure your protein is on point. You would,
Hmm.
your recovery is on point. You're not restricting carbs. Your recovery is on point. You can still, like, you can add a lot of muscle. You can truly drop your body weight set point a lot, And so, but when you do it this way, it takes time. But then that's the right way. You never rebound because your body is not triggering cravings and triggering you to go out of control to recoup the muscle that you're losing because you're crash dieting or you're not
Mm.
eating any carbs and your
Restricting.
thyroid is
Hmm.
messed up. It just
Hmm.
takes time to do it the right way without any increase in hunger or any increase in cravings or any eating disorder symptoms coming
Hmm.
back. So people need to understand that you got to be patient with this. This is a lifestyle. You want to fall in love with it. Don't, it's not just about like a 90-day challenge and I'm going to get
No,
my
my God, bang
ideal
my head
body
against
weight.
the wall.
No.
Yeah,
You,
I
how many
know.
times have you done that? Like, you know, how many times have I lost weight and like, oh, this is amazing. And then the rebounds always are the worst. You end up filling out even more body fat than what you started with before that crash diet that you did because you did not drop your body weight set point. You just created a calorie deficit. You have to learn what are the ways, how can we drop body weight set point? Adding muscle, improving fitness.
Mhm.
Those things improve insulin sensitivity and they're going to improve leptin signaling. They're going to raise your baseline dopamine. When you have higher baseline dopamine and serotonin, you naturally have a lower body weight set point. Ensuring we're getting enough fiber, that also drops body weight set point. Whole
Yep.
foods drops body weight set point. Like, there's so many things.
And stress reduction. I mean, it's like that's so powerful. And I think maybe we bring up like, so there was a study I wanted to bring up that was really cool. It's done in Stanford. And that oh my gosh, there's all this incredible research coming out around how much what we think about what we eat or how we're exercising impacts our body's response. And this is so key. And this is why I'm like, people take your power back because when you love what you're eating, when you love the way you're training, when you are developing a relationship with your body that is from a co-creation, from self-respect, from compassion, from what can I create? It's a fun process. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. So they did the study and they had the same two groups of people. They did a washout. So it was the same people. One day they gave them a shake that was labeled diet, and they measured 3 hours later, they measured their leptin, their satiety hormone, their ghrelin, their hunger hormone, and they measured their resting metabolism. And then the next day, they gave them the same shake, but it was masked for the study, so they wouldn't be able to tell. And it was labeled indulgent, rich, creamy, wonderful. And they measured the same metrics. Now, this is what's crazy. When they consumed the shake that was the diet shake, their ghrelin was 300% higher, their leptin was lower, and their metabolism was 20% lower than when they consumed the identical shake and thought it was the indulgent shake. And
Wow.
so when she's done multiple studies around this and is showing now, because everybody is focusing on the perfect diet, the perfect food, but what is your emotional state? How do you feel about what you're consuming? If you're consuming something and you have fear or you have shame or you have restriction or you have stress around that, you are literally changing how your body utilizes that energy. You are changing the hormonal profile. So when people, this is why I think when people say, I'm carbs are evil. I can't tolerate carbs no matter what. Like, okay, your body's going to respond that way. If that's what you truly believe, you are going to create that with a stress physiology because our bodies, there is a direct relationship between the chemistry of our body and how thoughts impact the chemistry. And so I always tell clients, like, we want to eat from a place of gratitude and compassion and love, and you will actually change the physiology. You will change the metabolic response to that food.
Wow. Yes, first of all, the power of the mind is far more powerful than any intervention you will ever do. Second of all, this has been so amazing. I really want us to answer all of those comments and the
Oh, we
questions that
need
we have.
to.
We need
Yes,
another part.
yes,
We're
yes,
gonna do part three.
yes.
Hopefully, I'll see if you can do it this Wednesday, not tomorrow, but Wednesday, hopefully. And we'll do the scheduling off the record. But I want to make sure I don't want it to be super long so that it would interfere with like people, hesitating before they click on it and invest hours. Let's just keep it at 1 hour. Everything else, I think, yeah, there's just too many topics that are so important with like the Hashimoto's, how to reintroduce carbs, the GI testing that's recommended, the differences between men's resilience versus female resilience on keto and carnivore, the chat GPT vibes. I mean, there's so many, the low carb availability during pregnancy and how that leads to worse
This
outcomes.
regulates a child's, yeah, metabolism
Yes,
later down. Mhm.
you have to give us part three. You can't say no
Yes.
to
Oh
that.
my gosh, of course, Sarah. I think we're gonna have to have a regular show. No, I'm just kidding.
I think so. This is amazing. I love it. You're so knowledgeable. I love the evidence-based approach, and I love that you've been through the keto, we've been through the carnivore, we've been there, we've done it, and now it's like a just completely different way to look at the science, a completely different way to look at food and what real health really should feel like. You shouldn't be
Yes.
feeling like you're losing your will to live. That means you're going to rebound. If you're losing weight, but you're losing your will to live along with it and energy is dipping, what does that tell you? You're just 1 second away from rebounding. That means this is not real a change, not real progress. So
Yeah. Yeah.
okay, let's
I love it.
yes, this is amazing. Thank you so much, Ariel. I did post your YouTube channel on the first part. I'll make sure I'll post a link to your YouTube channel. I know your website is going to be up in like 10 days or so. Hopefully, then we'll update your links so that people can see you. By the way, where are you located? I never even asked you
I'm
that.
in Florida too. I was like, we gotta somehow see each other. I'm in Sarasota.
Absolutely. Where? Oh,
Sarasota, Florida.
okay. Wait, Sarasota. Is this the East or the West Coast?
I'm on the West Coast, like right
Okay,
below, above Naples, below St. Pete.
wow. Okay. We have
You're in
to get
Miami,
together.
right? Or somewhere around
I
there?
was in Miami for like a decade or so, a little
Okay.
over. And then after the pandemic hit, we moved from Miami and bought a house in Ocala, which is like, you know where Ocala is?
Oh, okay. Yeah, farm country or horse country.
Cross
Yeah,
country, exactly,
yeah.
exactly. So the perks here is that it's just like an hour away from the Disney parks and Universal and all of that. So we're
Oh,
like
nice.
literally we have annual passes and we're there all the time. And the only con is that we're so used to Miami being at the beach all the time. It's very close, and now we have to drive 2 hours
Mhm.
either coast to get to the beach, but we do it anyway because that's how much we we love the beach. So I'm in Clearwater a lot, sometimes in Daytona. So you're really not that far.
No, you'll have to let me know. We could totally get together. It's only like 45 minutes from me.
We have to do a coffee a coffee
Would
meeting
love to.
and oh yes, have the croissants too because we can. I love it.
I
So
love it too.
okay, Ariel, any last message, anything you want to leave our audience with?
I would say that your body isn't broken, and it's really about shifting. Like I've said this, I know multiple times, but that the shift in the energy precedes matter. So shifting that energy and shifting from a place of self-loathing, shame, fear, lack, constrained, and thinking about, okay, my body is signaling. If you are struggling with something, this is a signal your body wants to work for you. And so how can you start to reconnect to that and start to rebuild? And oftentimes you do need a professional to help you do that. But this process of nutrition and health and wellness should be a labor of love, not fear, And if you are struggling with that, then there is support. Like Sarah and I see clients, and it's just it's such a the experience of really co-creating with your body is incredible. After years, I know we both have had that shame-based relationship with food in our bodies. And when you get to the other side, and then you start to look at it like, oh, what else can I do? What else can I accomplish? It's just it turns into like there is no timeline. We have the rest of our lives to continue to evolve and expand. And so give yourself that opportunity.
Amen. Thank you, Ariel. Thank you, everybody, for sticking with us till the end. Keep posting your comments and your questions. We are going to ensure we do a part 3 where we answer
Yes,
every single one of those. It's just that
yes,
today I really wanted to get the basics done with your workouts, the macros, the binge
yeah.
eating tree, so people can get to know you even more. And then we're gonna get to your Q&A section in part 3. Hopefully on Wednesday we'll see if Ariel can be there. But definitely this week, and yeah, thank you so much for sticking with us. Thank you so much, Ariel, again, and we will see you in the next one.